My aunt did try to keep me, but apparently wasn't strong enough to go up against my mother. And I was asked if I wanted to stay with my aunt. She was going to help me go back to school. She was going to help me with my little baby daughter. She was going to help me get into therapy. That was actually the deal, was that I go to therapy in order to be able to stay with her. And my mother said no. My mother wanted to make sure that I stayed the family piece of garbage. Not my brother, because my brother got to go live with my other aunt and uncle, and he ended up excelling in life, at least professionally in school and whatever. I don't know if he went back to school, but he ended up finding a career, and he's very successful. But he was set up to be successful at that point. My mother hadn't painted him as this horrible child. What was happening there was my brother was crashing cars and my mother was buying them for him, and he was going to end up dead somewhere. He was doing drugs. There were lots of problems going on. Only when he lived with my mother, because when he was at boarding school, he was a straight A, maybe a B here and there student. He was captain of the swim team. He was captain of his barracks. He went to military boarding school. Like, the time that he spent there, he didn't have any of the issues that he had at home because my mother wasn't there. Anyway, she let him go off and live with my aunt and uncle, a different aunt and uncle, the aunt that actually calls me the family liar since I was 4 years old. She wasn't willing to release me. And the biggest reason I believe that she wasn't willing to release me was because when I excelled, and I would have at that time, being in the care of my aunt, it would have shown that I was the victim of her and she was not the victim of me. So I don't, I look back at this with my aunt and I recognize it's not all black and white, and I know that she tried and I appreciate that she tried. Do I think she should have tried harder? Of course I do. The part where I have exception with her now is that when I grew up, like really grew up, and I disclosed the abuse and I said, look, I'm cutting my mother. I didn't even hear from her for that one. I didn't have a conversation with her. It was expected, I think. But with my grandparents, when I cut off that relationship, my aunt, ring, 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 she was all over me. All over me. And I disclosed that there was abuse. And guess what? She didn't show up for me. Who was she afraid of then? 3,000 miles away. Now I am 26 years old, married with 3 children. Well, really 5, because we had a blended family. That's my exception to her. My exception to her is not about back then. It's about right now. She could still stand up for me right now. She knows. She knew. And she knows. I don't think that's out of fear anymore. I think that's out of the need to maintain the status quo and the facade and not do the right thing, because doing the right thing, I guess, is harder for some people than others.